Rabbanim Nichbadim, community leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to be here this evening in East London in order to share some words of Torah with you with regard to our forthcoming festival of Shavuot. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the rabbis of this region, many of whom are present here this evening, for the outstanding spiritual leadership that they are giving to our communities here, and also their partners, the lay leaders of our communities here. And together, you are guaranteeing that the continuity of Jewish life here in East London will be strong, vital, and vibrant. I would also like at the outset to thank Rochelle Lazarus and her team for all their wonderful preparations for this evening's event, also the CST, and the various administrators of communities in the area who have publicized this event and helped us in the preparations. I feel very honored that our Shiur this evening is being dedicated to the memory of Avril Solomon Zaleh HaShalom. As Melvin has already explained, this is a tremendous loss for us within the United Synagogue family, and she is going to be now very deeply and sorely missed. It is our tradition that one of the finest ways in which one can pay tribute to the memory of somebody who has sadly passed away is with words of Torah. It is our belief that such words of Torah bring merit to the soul of the deceased. And I feel very honored that we're doing so in memory of Avril tonight. Tehi Zichra Baruch, may her memory be for an everlasting blessing. Our subject this evening is life at the push of a button, what our ancient sources have to teach us about our modern instant life. Those who are being born into the world right now don't know any difference. They haven't been part of a world in which there wasn't an internet, a world without any email. However, for those of us of a certain age, we well recall times before instant communications came about. So, for example, when I was studying in yeshiva in Israel, having come from South Africa, I would regularly send an aerogram to my parents. Such things, aerograms, don't exist anymore. And it would take up to 2 weeks for that aerogram to reach Cape Town, South Africa. And if my parents would reply instantly, it would take up to another 2 weeks. So therefore, usually, having written something to them, it took about a month for me to get a reply. I recall one particular incident when it was a Purim weekend, it was snowing, and I was standing at a bus stop outside Ayeshiva together with dozens of students. It was to be the last bus on a Friday afternoon. Our hope was to be with family and friends for that special Shabbat. The snow was heavy. Would the bus come or not? Eventually it came, and then the question was, once we had boarded, well, would it get through the snow or not? And we went through some remarkable experiences through which, thankfully, just in the nick of time, we arrived safely in Yerushalayim to spend Shabbat there. Let's roll on 28 years. Because having had that experience, I wrote to my parents very excitedly about that event. And 4 weeks later, I got a reply. And 28 years later, one of my sons studying at the same yeshiva was standing at the same bus stop. It happened to have been Yom Ha'atzmaut. My mobile phone went, and he said, Abba, it's Yom Ha'atzmaut. I'm waiting for a bus. It hasn't yet arrived. Please will you quickly check on the Egged website when the next bus will be coming for me at this stop. And within half a minute, I had the answer for him. How life has changed so dramatically for us. And it has been an enormous blessing. Baruch Hashem. At our fingertips, we have instant access to remarkable Divrei Torah from throughout all the ages. Incredible resources of Torah learning, information, and inspiration. And how marvelous it is that we can communicate instantly in so many different ways. We're being bombarded through all these modern methods through which we can be contactable, and often we remark on how wonderful Shabbos is, that day which is free from all these methods of communication that hit us. And in fact, so many communities around this country and around the world are calling for a mobile-free day, an internet-free day, a modern communications-free day. We've already got it. We've had it throughout all the ages. Shabbos is so relevant throughout all time. And of course, the internet as well presents huge challenges for us. You know, in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon writes, Chayim v'mavet beyad halashon, life and death are in the hand of the tongue. That is to say that the tongue is enormously powerful. What I say can bring about life. What I say can, God forbid, destroy life. The tongue is of enormous power. And I would like to suggest a perush as to the exact wording of this verse, authored by King Solomon. Why does it say, Chaim v'mavet b'yad halashon? Life and death are in the hand of the tongue. It should simply be, life and death are in the tongue. It's what the tongue does. What's the hand of the tongue? But today we've come to appreciate that the hand is the tool of the tongue. The hand that keys in all those messages on my keyboard. The hand is the one that sends out those messages, not just within my immediate vicinity, but indeed throughout the whole world. There is that story of a chassid who went to his Rebbe and he said, Rebbe, I want you please to help me to do tshuva. Help me to repent. I've been slandering people unnecessarily. I've caused a lot of damage to people's reputations. Rebbe, how can I do tshuva? How can I repent? And the Rebbe said, it is simple. What you need to do is, on a windy day, take a box full of feathers, go to the top of a hill, open the box, and allow all the feathers to blow out. After 10 minutes, run around the entire outskirts of that hill, the entire area, gather all the feathers and put them back into the box. The chassid stopped the Rebbe and he said, Rebbe, that's impossible. And the Rebbe answered and he said, well, that's my answer to you. Because once you slander people, through what you have performed with your tongue, having given people a bad reputation, you can never put those words back in your mouth again. Even after an apology, even after trying your best to do whatever you can, the damage is done. That doesn't free you from trying to redress the situation, from making that apology, from informing all those that you informed previously that what you had informed them was absolutely wrong. But even then, what you have achieved will to some degree stay. And isn't this what we are discovering right now? Through messages that go out at the press of a button about people right around the world, sometimes accurate, sometimes inaccurate, the enormous amount of harm that is being caused, together with the incredible blessings that come with such communications. I'm reminded of the introduction of the Ramban Nachmanides to the book of Vayikra, and he writes there about the fact that according to his belief, nothing that God has created is in its natural state either good or bad. Everything, he says, is created in a neutral state. So for example, take a tree. Is a tree good or bad? A tree is neutral. It all depends on what we do with the tree. From that tree, I can fashion some wood from which I can create the pages of a chumash. I will sanctify the tree. From the same tree, I can create a stick with which to beat people, or the pages of a book with inappropriate material. In that way, I will be desecrating the tree. It's all in my hands. And the same applies, he writes, with regard to wine. Is wine good or bad? It all depends on what we do with wine. I can take a bottle of wine, I can slug it down, and within 10 minutes I can be lying in the gutter, man at his lowest ebb, absolutely stone drunk. Or I can take the same bottle of wine, put it on the Friday night table, fill a becher with it, and it's called Kiddush. It is holy. I have sanctified life with it. And the Ramban goes on to say that what applies to actual tangible objects applies as well to concepts and thoughts. For example, take love. God's created us with the capacity to love. Love is neutral. I can love good people and good things. I can love bad people and bad things. The same thing applies to hatred. The same thing applies to gossip. Yes, sometimes it's a mitzvah to inform people that there is a danger to them because somebody is there threatening their very existence. A mitzvah to stand up in court and to provide evidence against somebody who is a menace within our society. God has provided us with the capacity, sometimes even the urge, and sometimes even the love to speak badly about people. Nothing is totally taboo. There will always be an opportunity within which we can refine and sanctify the opportunities that God provides us with, and the same thing applies, of course, to food. You know, you can't say food is good or bad, but what we do is we refine our eating habits, as a result of which, through kashrut, we limit what we eat and we sanctify it. And so too, through the laws of tarat mishpacha, family purity. You know, in some religions they hold that relationships of a physical nature between man and woman, that is something which is absolutely taboo. That's not our way. If God has created us with that urge and with that desire, there must be the potential for holiness in it. And that is why the biblical term for a prostitute is a kedesha, the Holy One. Because in what she is doing, there is the potential for kiddushin. And that is why marriage in our tradition is called kiddushin. It is an act of holiness. Every single thing that God has given us, a plus or a minus, can become holy or profane. It's all in our hands. How we refine our lives, how we devote ourselves to that which is right, how we uplift, or God forbid, how we denigrate and desecrate. And the same thing therefore applies to something like television. Through television you can see some amazing things. You can become educated, you can become enlightened. Or it can be a source of incredible tumah, of impurity, right in the heart of our family lives. And the same thing applies to the internet. It all depends on how you use it. And we therefore should encourage people to utilize this modern resource in the best possible way for sacred purposes. From the festival of Shavuot, we can also learn a lot about modern communications and their impact on our lives. Have you ever thought of the name that we give to the festival? Shavuot, which means weeks. Of course, there are various names, all of which are acceptable and understandable, except for Shavuot. Chag HaBikurim, the festival of our first fruits, totally understandable. Chag HaKatzir, the festival of our harvest, absolutely fine. Atzeret, which is the term used in the Talmud, it's a day of stopping, primarily in post-temple times, characterized by the fact that we don't perform malacha. We don't engage in creative activity. There's not much more to the day of Shavuot. There's no mitzvah of matzvah, there's no seder, there's no dwelling in a sukkah, there's no shofar. It's a kind of a Shabbos, except it's Yom Tov. So it's called Atzeret, it's a day of stopping. But Shavuot? Weeks? Do you know what it's like? If I would use an analogy from the football world, it's like calling the cup final the qualifiers. You see, the qualifying rounds are there to lead up to the cup final. This team knocks out that team, etc., and then you get to the quarterfinals, the semifinals. Eventually you come to the cup final. The destination is the cup final. That's what everybody's keen and interested in. How could you call the cup final the qualifiers? But isn't that exactly what we do with Shavuot? Shavuot means weeks, and it relates to the 7 weeks leading up to the festival. So we're calling that big day, that great day, that anniversary of the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the weeks. It's the qualifiers. It's the period that leads up to it. I believe that from here we must learn that it's not only the destination that counts, the journey is important as well. It's not only having everything we want instantly at our fingertips that's important. There's also importance in a sense of anticipation. It's important as well sometimes to look forward to something. And through that keen anticipation, you will ultimately appreciate all the more what you achieve and what you have. Because if everything is delivered to you on a silver platter instantly, it'll be brilliant. But to what degree will you really appreciate it? And that is why the most significant anniversary of the year, Zman Matan Torateinu, the season of the giving of the Torah, is not called by that name. It's called by that period of anticipation which leads up to it. And yes, there was a time when you moved into a house and you had to place an order for a telephone. Some of us will remember that. And you were given a date, 3, 4, 5 months down the line. And you'd accept it. And in the meantime, you'd go to the neighbors and you'd go to those public phone boxes. Who here remembers public phone boxes? In order to make your calls, and eventually the great day will come. Today, before you know it, you've got a phone. You move into the house, it's already. But what do you need a phone in your house for? You've got a mobile wherever you go. Life has changed dramatically. I'm not suggesting we should punish ourselves by having to wait. You know, there's that story in Russia of the old days where the fellow phones up and he wants to order his fridge. So he's told, your fridge will be arriving. So let's say it's happening now. He was told on the 17th of July, 2017. That's when you'll be getting your fridge. So the fellow says to the man on the other side, he says, I'm sorry, that day's not good for me. The fellow says, what are you talking about, that day's not good for you? He says, my oven's arriving on that day. So that's what life used to be like. Today, it's all available instantly. And not only do we not sufficiently appreciate it when we receive it, as soon as there's the tiniest little chink in it, out it goes. You wouldn't bother calling in somebody to repair it. That would probably cost more, just the service call and the work that he's doing, than buying a fresh new one. So because of the incredible, wonderful, remarkable availability of everything at our fingertips, we're starting to lose touch with the importance of anticipation. There's a beautiful Khatam Sofer on the concept of being a Shomer Shabbat. What does it mean to be Shomer Shabbos or Shomer Mitzvahs? The Pasuk says, V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. And the people of Israel should be Shomer Shabbat in order to do Shabbos throughout their generations. So la'asot et ha-Shabbat, doing Shabbos, must mean keeping Shabbos, as we know, to do the mitzvahs of Shabbos. So what then does it mean when it says, V'shamru b'nei Israel, you must be Shomer Shabbat? The Khatam Sofer says, la'asot, doing Shabbos, is something you do on Shabbos. To be Shomer Shabbat, you do from Sunday to Friday. To be Shomer Shabbat means to look forward with keen anticipation to the next Shabbos. And he learns it from a verse in the book of Breshit. Joseph has his dreams. He reveals his dreams to his brothers. His brothers hate him for those dreams. And what's the reaction of his father? Ve'aviv shamar et hadavar. And his father was shomer that matter. His father knew instinctively this was prophecy. And he looked forward to the time when Joseph's dreams would become fulfilled. That is to be shomer. So what we learn from here is, when it comes to Shabbos, we shouldn't just engage in the activities of the day in a mechanical fashion, but as soon as one Shabbos is over, we look forward to the next Shabbos. That's to be Shomer Shabbat. When it comes to be Shomer Mitzvot, we don't just perform this mitzvah and that mitzvah mechanically, but rather we anticipate it because we appreciate its magical qualities within our lives. We dream of it, we yearn for it, we look forward to it, and then when we come to it, we appreciate it enormously. And that is why the Hebrew language is unique when it comes to the names we give to the days of the week. In every other language, every day has a name, an identity of its own. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And in our language, Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi. First day, second day, third day. I define a day according to its proximity or distance from the Shabbos before and the Shabbos that comes after. Because during the week, I yearn for Shabbos, I anticipate it, and I look forward to it. Sometimes it's good not to have everything at my fingertips. Sometimes there's value in the journey, which can be as important as the destination. And that being the case, let us have a look at the journey to the day of Shavuot. Because for a 49-day period, we relive the experiences of the Israelites from the moment that they left Egyptian bondage up to the time when they stood at the foot of Mount Sinai in order to receive the Torah. And that is why we count the Omer. We go through this counting procedure in order to climb the steps of our spiritual ladder, so that when we hear the Torah reading, the Ten Commandments on Shavuot morning, we will presume that we are as if standing at Mount Sinai as our ancestors did. So let's look at this journey. When we count the Omer, we count it day after day without stopping, and we are exact in our counting, mentioning exactly the weeks and the days concerned. There's a verse in the book of Proverbs, Uchemat monim tachpesena. Search for Torah as one searches for treasure. And my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Goldvich Zatzal of Kerem Beyavne, used to comment as follows: the word matmonim tachpesena, matmonim can be broken into memtet monim. We count 49. So therefore, the counting of the 49 days of the Omer is like a search for hidden treasure. And Rav Goldvich went on to explain, if let us say, I know that at a certain point in a forest, close to a certain tree, there is hidden treasure down in the ground, and I reveal that detail to you, and I will mark the spot on a map, and I'll give it to you, and I'll say, go over there, dig, and you will find the treasure. Oh, you will run out there as soon as you can. You'll start to dig at the exact spot. Now, I'm telling you now that that treasure is 10 feet down in the ground. You don't know how deep it is. You start to dig. You dig, you dig, you dig. Maybe after 6 feet you'll stop. You'll say, it must be the wrong spot. Maybe he was fibbing. Maybe after 7 feet. Maybe after 9.5 feet. You see, in order to find that treasure, you have to dig continuously. Next, you also have to dig accurately. Because if you dig 50 or 100 feet down, but if it's at an angle, you'll never hit the treasure. Therefore, Uchemat monim tachpesena, during the counting of the Omer, it's as if we're searching for hidden treasure. First of all, we have to count continuously every single day. And if you miss out on counting on one single day, you can't continue with a blessing afterwards. You can continue without a blessing. But you've missed your opportunity for continuity. Secondly, when we count, we must count exactly. You have to get it right. You can't get the day wrong, together with the exact weeks and days in question. That's how you search for hidden treasure, and that's how we count. And I believe that there's a profound message here for us. When searching for Torah in our lives, when there are members of our community who are yearning for spiritual upliftment, there are two essential ingredients. Number one, continuity, and number two, accuracy. If somebody has kept one Shabbos and said, no, it was all right, but not so brilliant, you need to tell that person Shabbos after Shabbos after Shabbos, and then you'll start appreciating it. Or if somebody has kept a Shabbos throughout an entire year, but has flicked on the odd switch, has, texted here or there, who knows what, and they say, nothing to it. You must say, must be continuous. It also has to be accurate. Let's have a look at the concept of continuity. In a number of places in the Talmud, the question is asked, what is the most important verse in the whole Torah? And I'm sure you've heard some of the answers, such as love your neighbor as yourself, believe in God, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, or even the verse that I quoted in my installation address on the 1st of September in St. John's Wood Shul, Genesis chapter 5, verse 1, this is the book of the generations of man on the day that God formed man. In the image of God he created him, which testifies to the fact that every single human being is created in the image of God. These are all great verses. But in the Yalkut Shimoni, there is a totally different answer given by Shimon ben Pazi. What does he say? Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi says, the most important verse in the Torah is from Parshat Tetzaveh. Et hakevet ha'echad taseh v'boker, ve'et hakevet ha'sheni taseh ben arbaim. Some of you might be familiar with a similar verse from the Parsha of Pinchas, which we read on Rosh Chodesh. And what does it mean? You shall offer one lamb on the altar every morning and one lamb every afternoon. That, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, is the most significant, important verse of the entire Torah. And you must ask, what is this all about? A lamb in the morning, a lamb in the afternoon. That's what we all have to know about. But I'll tell you the answer. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi here is recognizing the value of the Tamid offering, the continuous offering, day in and day out, regardless of the day, whether it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, even Yom Kippur, the Tamid was offered. Every morning, every afternoon, we're speaking here about continuity of devotion and commitment. You see, occasional and seasonal commitment to Jewish religion and practice is nice. But that's not what's going to keep Am Yisrael going forever. To keep us going, to guarantee our survival, We need ongoing, daily, continuous commitment. And that's why I regard so highly those who attend our regular Shachrit, Mincha, and Ma'ariv services in our shul. Those who are totally devoted to keeping the community going. Those whom you see day in and day out and Shabbos in and Shabbos out. Who are absolutely committed. Because they're providing for us a guarantee of our continuity. The next generations will not be totally committed when sometimes you're interested, sometimes you're not, sometimes you're into it, sometimes you're not, sometimes it matters, sometimes it don't. You keep this at home, but you don't keep it out, or whatever it is. We appreciate everything that everybody does. But if you're talking about the survival of Jewish faith, it has to be every morning, every afternoon, and every evening. Just like Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, the journey from Pesach to Shavuot, it needs to be continuous. And then it needs to be accurate. We need to do it according to the authentic ways and traditions of our faith. And we are blessed to have a most incredible Torah, a guide to life, written and authored by the Almighty Himself, relevant in a timeless fashion for all ages, as a result of which we have the ultimate recipe for happy, meaningful, and uplifted living. Now there's another aspect to our counting of the Omer. You see, when I count in the evening, I don't only count for tonight with my mind on tonight, I'm also guaranteeing the continuity of the counting process which will lead me to Shavuot. So if, let's say, it's night number 21, I need to count correctly for night number 21, but thanks to the fact that I'm counting on that night, I'm building a bridge from 20 to 22, and therefore I've also got my eyes on the future. With one and the same blessing, I'm fulfilling a mitzvah for now, and it's also a hechsher mitzvah because I'm enabling myself to continue with mitzvahs until the festival of Shavuot, all through one and the same act. It reminds me of the game of snooker. I don't know if anybody here is interested in it or is familiar with it. Whether you are or not, I'm going to tell you about it. So, what's the difference between an amateur snooker player and a professional player? If you're an amateur player, you'll try to pot the shots. And your big dream is that that shot will go into the pocket. What happens to the cue ball afterwards? Well, you'll see where it goes, and from there you'll try and work out whether you'll get the next shot in or not. A professional player has to keep the table. He has to keep his opponent off the table. As a result, when he shoots, that the white ball is the cue ball, when he shoots the white ball onto a color, he mustn't only get that color into the pocket, he also has to guarantee with the brilliance of his play that that cue ball, the white ball, will then go and land in a spot from which he'll be able to shoot the next color. And then after that, the next color. And in that way, he'll go on and on and on and get a 147 and clear up the whole board, and the opponent won't even have a go. That's what we do during Sfirat HaOmer. It's potting that cue ball. I'm shooting for tonight, and I'm also setting up a shot for tomorrow night, and the night after, and the night after, all at one and the same time. And I believe that here there is a great message for our communities. And that is, when it comes to community planning and community building, we need to have our eyes on now, and we also need to have our eyes on the future. When it comes to the decisions that we need to take for our congregations, we need to ensure that we have happy, meaningful, and uplifting services now, that we are serving the needs of our community now, and at the same time, we need to have a plan for the future. We need to look at statistics, at demographics. We need to plan according to predictions to guarantee that at one and the same time, while catering for now, we're also investing in the best possible future. Having gone to so many communities around the country and having the privilege as Chief Rabbi to see what's happening within our kehillas, there are some communities which have the challenge of numbers. So many numbers. So what should they do? Should one large community split it up to become 2 or 3 smaller communities? Do you bring in additional rabbis? Do you have alternative minyanim, maybe on one side, maybe on different sides? What an incredible bracha to have. Now, you shouldn't only look after the interests of the people now. You have to start investing. If people are moving into the area, how are we catering for an expanding Jewish community to guarantee that we'll be providing for them adequately well into the future? At the same time, if unfortunately a community is declining, you can't just look at the question of well, where am I happy sitting? And if I've got my minion, that's what counts to me. And it makes no difference what will happen 10 or 20 years down the line. You look after today, you have to invest in the future as well, to guarantee that within a changing demographic climate, we are ensuring that the future of our community will be the best thing possible for our children and grandchildren in the years to come. That is the story of a responsible journey that we can be on as we develop our communities both for today and for the future. Now, there is a fascinating perush of the Ramban. Laurie, in his introduction, referred to the census at the beginning of the book of Bamidbar, which we are now reading. And we know from the Parsha of Kitisa that there wasn't a poll count. We don't count people's heads. We don't count people. We say not one, not two, not three, etc. And there we counted the half-shekel pieces, which gave us an indication of the census figure for the nation. Here, in last week's Seder of Bamidbar, yesterday's Seder of Nassau, a different term is used, b'mispar shemot. That's what the Torah says. According to the number of their names. What does it mean, the number of their names? You counted names. Where were those names? So the Ramban says as follows. The whole purpose of the census could be described in two different ways. The first is to explain the greatness of God. Once we would obtain the total tally, the number of the people at that time, people would say, isn't it amazing? After all those years of slavery and servitude and persecution in Egypt, incredible. Look how many people we've got who have survived within this expanded nation against the odds. The total tally, the sachakol, the absolute number would testify to the greatness of God. Then the Ramban gives a second commentary. And he said that the whole purpose of the census was actually the methodology of the census. It was to go through the exercise. It was the journey that counted, not the destination. And what was the beauty of that journey, of the taking of the census? You see it says, b'mispar shemot, the number of their names. What happened, he says, was as follows. The tribes took it in turns. And every member of a tribe would file past Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our great teacher, and the Nasi, the head of that tribe, standing alongside him. Every individual would pass. And as they went past, either they would hand a piece of paper with their name written onto it to the Nasi, to the head of the tribe, and he would nod and have a few words with the person, or the person would come along and say, Shlomo ben Michal. He said, oh, nice to meet you, how's everybody? And then, etc. So people would mention their names, or they would write their names. And in that way, the names were counted. But the whole purpose was the exercise. And what was this exercise all about? It was an opportunity that was given to members of the Jewish nation to engage with their leaders, to have a personal connection with them, because that is so important. I don't know if any of you have met the Queen, but if you have, you will remember every single one of those seconds of the 15-second audience you had with Her Majesty, what exactly she said to you. I don't think she remembers what she said to you, but you will probably remember every word, every nuance of that. And similarly, if you've spoken to the Prime Minister or to some senior dignitary of some type or other, it's so special to have that connection. And in our tradition, we provide the connection in order that people can be inspired through coming into touch with their leaders. Now, Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal, in commenting on this Ramban, says as follows. The two commentaries of the Ramban, Nachmanides, highlight two different aspects. The first one speaks about the total tally, what in totality counts, the total figure. The second perush, the second commentary, relates to the ingredients within the total tally. And Rav Soloveitchik goes on to give the following example. He said, let's say you go into a shop, you ask how much does this item cost? The lady says 27 pounds, so you need to give 27 pounds. Does it matter to you how many notes there are, what type of notes there are, how many coins? It makes no difference as long as you hand over 27 pounds. Let's say you're a teacher and you have in your class 27 pupils and you're going on a class outing. The number 27 will always be in your head. On the bus, 27. Off the bus, 27. In the museum, 27. 27, 27. You'll go totally meshuggah. So in case, God forbid, there won't be 27. Now, what's important about that number 27 for the teacher? It's not the total number. 27 is not a magical number. It's every ingredient. It's every pupil, which makes up that total number of 27. Therefore, said Rav Soloveitchik, according to the first parish, the first commentary of the Ramban, what matters is the total number. How you reach that number doesn't matter. It's the totality that counts. According to the second commentary, it's the ingredients. Every individual within the nation counts. And isn't this a marvelous, powerful lesson for us within our communities? We're always talking about numbers. You've been to an event, first question is, how many people were there? Tomorrow, right? When you tell people you've been here tonight, what are they going to say to you? How many people were there? How well did he speak? Right? Okay. That's my guess about the first two questions that they'll ask. But question number one is always, how many were there? Because numbers equals strength. Your community, oh, you're from such and such a kahila. How many members have you got? How many people come on a Shabbos morning? The total number is an indication of strength or weakness. But there is something more important than the total number. It's each ingredient within that number. It's every person within the kahila, every person in that shul, as an individual, as a man, as a woman, as a child. Every individual must matter to us as an organization and as a community. We shouldn't only worry about the totality of numbers. More importantly, we have to worry about the people who make up those numbers. And therefore, when it comes now, as we apply this to the counting of the Omer, what is important to us as we travel on our journey from Pesach through to Shavuot? Is it the Tisperu Chamishim Yom, as the Torah puts it, count 50 days, the total number, the destination, the festival of Shavuot? That is important. But what's more important is every day of that journey, as we climb up the steps of that ladder of perfection, to reach that goal, to reenact the receiving of Torah at Mount Sinai on Shavuot day. It's each ingredient that counts, which makes up the total tally of 50 days. So it's not only the destination that's important, it is also the journey. There is one further lesson that we can learn. The final lesson I'd like to impart to you relating to our journey during this time of the year. And here I would base my comments on the different arguments that we find in the Talmud between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Now, it's not just simplistically that Hillel was always lenient and Shammai was always strict, and therefore Beit Hillel, the house of Hillel, were always lenient, and the Beit Shammai, the house of Shammai, were always strict. It's not exactly that case all the time. Actually, Hillel and Shammai and their disciples had distinctly different worldviews. So let me give you an example of three of their great machloktot, three great debates and arguments. The first one, well known, from the festival of Hanukkah. In the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kaf Aleph, Amud Bet. So how do we light the Hanukkah candles? Shammai says, on the first night you light 8. The second night 7. The third night 6, going down to 1 on the final night. Hillel says, on the first night you light 1, then 2, then 3, up to 8. And of course we follow the view of Beit Hillel in this regard. Machloket argument number 2. It comes from the Gemara Masechet Chagiga Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph. And there the question is asked, what was created first, the heavens or the earth? Beit Shammai says the heavens were created first. Beit Hillel says the earth was created first. Beit Shammai says the heavens were created first, and I'm sure this is what you're thinking must be the case, because what are the very first words of the Torah? Breshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Heavens before earth. So obviously the heavens were created before the earth. So how can Beit Hillel suggest the other way around? Beit Hillel quotes the first verse of the second chapter of the Torah. B'yom asot Hashem Elokim eretz v'shamayim. On the day that God created earth and heaven. And there it is, Eretz v'shamayim, the other way around. So Beit Hillel relies on that second source. That's the second argument I want to bring to your attention. And now the third argument. It's from the Gemara Masechet Beitzah, Daf Tet Zayin, Amud Aleph. And there the question is asked. If you happen to find a choice piece of meat on a weekday, let's say on a Tuesday, what should you do with it? Beit Shammai says, keep it for Shabbos. And the Gemara there quotes the ways of Shammai that throughout his life he lived lichvod Shabbat, in honor of the next Shabbos. Good food that you find during the week, you don't consume it today, you keep it in honor of Shabbos. What did Hillel used to do? He ate it on that day because he quoted the verse, Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom. Blessed is the Lord on every single day. Now what is the common theme that runs through these debates? You see, Shammai had the destination in mind, but Hillel was a man of the journey. So when it came to the festival of Chanukah, what was in Shammai's mind? It's reaching the final day. As a result, Shammai engaged in a countdown. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're there, you've arrived. The whole purpose of the lighting is to reach that destination. And similarly, if you find a piece of meat during the week, you're living during the week, lichvod Shabbat, in honor of the next Shabbat. It's not the weekdays that counts, it's Shabbos that counts, and that's why I must keep that choice piece of meat for Shabbos. And similarly, if it's a question of what was created first, the earth or the heaven, we're here existing on earth, but where are we eventually going to? We're going to heaven, so therefore it's the heaven that's more important than the earth. Hillel had a very different worldview. Of course the destination is important, but we're living in the here and now, and we have to make the most of our opportunities as they exist right now. It's for this reason, let me add, that while the world to come, Olam Haba, is central to our faith, if I wasn't convinced that the soul would live forever, it would be impossible to accept the Torah. That's quite a strong statement, but it's so. Because the Torah is based on the principle of reward and punishment. And if you have a look at the reality of life, don't you see many outstanding people who suffer? And don't you see some rotten people who prosper? That's the reality of life and world. Thank God some good people also are rewarded and some bad people have it tough. But if you just isolate life in this world by itself, it's not always fair. But it doesn't matter, because life is continuous. The soul continues to live on beyond our physical existence on earth. That is true living. And God balances everything up in the world to come. So why, therefore, seeing as the world to come is such an important concept for us, why doesn't the Torah say, if you are good and you perform mitzvahs, God will reward you with life in the world to come? I'll tell you the reason. Because the Torah is a guide to life as it exists. You can't have one foot into there. We've got 2 feet firmly on terra firma. We have to make the most of opportunities as they exist here. The Torah guides us with regard to the real world that we're a part of right now. And that's also the reason why the days of the Mashiach, the Messianic age, are not spelt out explicitly. There are many hints both to the world to come and the Messianic age in the Torah, but they're both not spelt out absolutely explicitly. Because we believe that the Mashiach will come. But that's not going to help me right now with all the problems and the challenges that I've got in my life. My tzoros, my blessings. I've got to relate to them realistically. Not thinking, well, hopefully the Mashiach will come before whatever ever happens. Well, it's good to believe in the Mashiach. We all should. But we also have to be realistic people within this world. So that was Hillel's view. He related to the world as it exists, to the journey, to make the most of that journey. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, blessed be God, every single day of our lives. Consequently, as far as Hillel was concerned, when it came to lighting the Chanukah candles, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not a count down, it's a count up. So that on each day of the festival, you build on the light that we had the previous day in order to experience greater light on the following day. Ma'alin b'kodesh. We raise our spiritual profile from day to day, Hillel said. And so too, if you find the piece of meat during the week, of course we're looking forward to Shabbos, and we have the best possible food on Shabbos. And those who prepare it are just amazing in our lives. But what we eat today is also important. We have to look after ourselves, and every day must count. And the same, therefore, when it comes to what was created first, the heavens or the earth. While Shammai believed in the spirit of a teaching in Pirkei Avot that it's the traklin, it's the banqueting hall that's important, and not the prosdor, the corridor that leads to it, Hillel was of a different view. It's the prosdor, it's the path, it's the journey that is of great importance to us, in addition to the destination that we are coming to. And that is what we exactly do during the days of the counting of the Omer. You would imagine that from Pesach to Shavuot, we engage in a countdown. We're all looking forward to this great day of Shavuot, and it's something which we will experience well beyond the taste of cheesecake. It's the most incredible festival. It's a day through which we celebrate the greatness and the relevance of Torah in our lives. It's a marvelous chag that we're having this week. So if we're looking forward to it with such a passion, let's have a countdown towards it. But that's not what we do. We have a count up. We don't start on 49 going down to 1. We start on 1 going up to 49. Because in that way, we appreciate every moment of every day. We build on our successes and our strengths of the previous day in order to reach greater and greater heights as we proceed along on the steps of our journey. And the message for us, therefore, is that that is how we should conduct our entire lives. We've only got one life in this world. We need to make the best of it, not to fall into the slippery slope as we get older, to allow ourselves things that we wouldn't do before, that we shouldn't be doing. On the contrary, as we proceed in life, we should be gaining in our spiritual momentum to take on further responsibilities within the life of Judaism that is at our disposal, building on what we've achieved previously to reach greater and towering heights in the future. And that too is how we relate to the modern blessings and challenges of instant communications in our time. Yes, it is wonderful to have the destination. Yes, it's incredible to instantly be in touch with this one in that part of the world and the other person, and get replies immediately. And you don't have to miss your kids, your grandkids. You can see them on Skype and engage with them and be bombarded with messages, this and the other. It's all wonderful, and have that connection to resources of information and inspiration. But at the same time, we shouldn't forget that it's also important to go on a journey, to have a sense of anticipation, to look forward to something so that we can appreciate it when it comes. And as a result, we will become more refined, we will become more uplifted, and life will become all the more meaningful to us. That is why the name that we give to the festival this week is Shavuot. It's our cup final day on our Jewish calendar, and we call it the qualifiers. It's one of the most important days of the year, and we call it Shavuot, the weeks leading up to it, because it's not only the destination that counts, it's the journey as well. Thank you very much.